Hello and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. Today's webinar is Black Soldier Fly Ingredients in Dog Food, Benefits and Technical Data. It's sponsored by Enterra and presented by Petfood Industry and Watt Global Media. My name is Debbie Phillips Donaldson, Editor-in-Chief of Petfood Industry, and I will be your moderator today. Before we start, we have a few housekeeping items, please. First, there will be a question and answer segment at the end of our presentation today. Please feel free to submit your questions throughout the presentation using the Q&A chat function in the panel on the right-hand side of your screen. We will answer as many questions as we can with the time allowed. This webinar is being recorded and the recording will be available as an on-demand video starting tomorrow. Please note that we have several upcoming webinars scheduled, including Pet Food Project Management Insights for Non-Project Managers on April 8th, and the Pet Food Market 2020 Update and 2021 Projections and Trends on April 14th. To register for those, view the on-demand video of today's webinar or see other on-demand webinars from the past, please visit petfoodindustry.com/webinars. During the webinar today, we will post a poll question and give you all time to respond, and we would greatly appreciate your responses and look forward to seeing those. There will also be a brief survey at the conclusion of today's webinar, and we would greatly appreciate your feedback from that. Our sponsor today is Enterra. Enterra produces the highest quality insect ingredients for animal feed and pet food companies at the forefront of innovation and sustainability. Whether your focus is pets, poultry, fish, or any other animal, Enterra will work closely with you to ensure your success in the future of feed. Enterra is a proud member of the Pet Sustainability Coalition, a collaborative nonprofit organization that accelerates pet businesses through environmental and social impact strategies. For more information on products and services offered by Enterra, please visit enterra.com. Our speakers for today are Brad Iwancu and Serge Boutet. Brad will be leading off the webinar. He is Product Line Manager Feed with Enterra. He has 20 years of experience in various sales and marketing roles in the agriculture industry, spending time with Bayer Crop Science, Pulse Canada, FMC Agriculture, and Gowan Company in various product marketing and management roles. At Enterra, he is responsible for all aspects of product management for the current portfolio of black soldier fly larva-based products and ingredients. Please join me in welcoming Brad Iwancu.
Good morning. As mentioned, my name is Brad Iwancu. I am the product line manager for feed with Enterra. Enterra is a leader in insect production. We harness the power of insects to feed and care for the world, and we've doing so for over 14 years, optimizing the process of growing black soldier fly. So a question, sustainability, does it matter? Something that a lot of people in business have asked over the years. And quite simply, the answer is yes, because the market demands it. Amy Kerr, who is the Director of Business Development with Spins, she spoke at the Global Pet Expo last week and had been quoted as saying, the research shows that Gen Z and millennials are the new pet owners since the pandemic. These consumers are more interested in sustainability in comparison to older generations. And she goes on to say that this means that they will be demanding sustainably sourced proteins. So what makes something sustainable? Well, the simple definition of sustainability is that the product or process has the ability to be maintained at a certain rate or level. So some things that are deemed as unsustainable are high levels of carbon emissions, inefficient land use, having water quality effects or inefficient water use. And in addition to an increase in demand for sustainability or sustainable products, we're seeing more people on the earth. So we have a larger middle class in places like India and China, much more demand for protein, more pets. And so the problem is that with limited resources, we're seeing that increased in demand because of the population, as well as that increased demand for sustainable solutions. So based on all of those concerns, increased efficiency will be key. So things like advancements in crop production, more use of plant protein, advancements in breeding, and different products like algae, duckweed, and mycoprotein will be a part of the solution. And a big part of the solution coming from Enterra will be insect consumption or insect production. And the question here is it sustainable, or how is it part of the solution? And the answer to that is based on efficiency. We do think it is sustainable. A study in 2016 from Smetana looked at the sustainability of insect use for feed and food, a life cycle assessment perspective, and they found that insect protein powder is 2 to 5 times more environmentally beneficial than traditional products like chicken and whey. So it's good for the planet. It can be produced far more efficiently. Insects are amazingly efficient at transforming nutrients versus conventional sources. We have no arable land required. We produce no methane. We have less CO2 production than fish or fish meal production. And we are producing more nutrients per square foot with insects than traditional sources. And so now I'd like to speak a little bit about the most efficient of the insects produced in insect agriculture, the black soldier fly, or Hermetia illucens. So the black soldier fly originated in the southern United States, southern North America, and over the years has been transported to different parts of the world, including South America, Southern Europe, Africa, and Australia. And if you look on the right side, you'll see the photo of the black soldier fly, and you can see they're about 1 centimeter long. They're a unique looking fly, completely black. Of course, this is where the name comes from. And so why has the black soldier fly risen to the top in regards to insect agriculture? Well, first of all, it has no mouth parts, so they only feed as larvae. They live on the resources that are collected or fed as the larva, so they don't sting or bite. They only live for 1 to 2 weeks to breed, and they are not a pest or a vector of disease, so there's no concerns in regards to that side of things. And they provide an excellent balanced nutrition that contain all essential amino acids. They have a unique blend of saturated fats and unsaturated fats, which is unique in regards to the fatty acid profile. And they have antimicrobial components, which I'll speak to, that really provide some unique functional benefits. Another component is they are very efficient detritivores, so they can consume an immense amount of feedstock in a short period of time. They will grow up to 1 million times their size in a matter of 3 weeks from the neonate stage up to the harvested larvae. And they eat a wide variety of food, including recycled fruits and vegetables and breads. So we have 2 nutritionists on staff, and they can take that variety of different feedstock and come up with a nutritional balanced feedstock for the larvae. We are regulated by CFIA with the feedstock, and we feed 100% plant-based products. So the life cycle of the black soldier fly larvae is quite simple. We go from eggs to the neonate stage, and then we have the larvae growing quickly up to the pre-pupae stage, where harvest takes place prior to the pupating, and then moving to the next generation of adults and black soldier fly. And with the process within our production, we try to mimic nature. We're essentially taking that life cycle and recreating it within the facility. So the first step, we have our feedstock processing area. We have our hatchery and incubation, and so the larvae come into the larvae rearing area, which is a controlled environment. We have an automated feeding and monitoring system that is based on some advanced custom robotics and technologies that have been developed and optimized over the years. We have the area 3, the product processing area, where the larvae are harvested, dried, and processed. Very rigorous quality control program in effect here. And then we actually keep 2% of the larvae and move that back into the breeding area, which again has very advanced technologies that have been developed over the years within Enterra, and then those eggs are collected and the next generation is begun. So the ingredients that we're harvesting, of course, the first stage is the whole dried black soldier fly larvae. Contains good nutritional profile, 34% protein and 40% fat. And we process that into a protein meal, a mechanically defatted protein meal. And that has 53% protein, very highly digestible protein, and a 15% fat because it's, as I mentioned, partially defatted. All the essential amino acids can be utilized as an ingredient in formulated pet foods and treats. And it also has a low level of chitin. And so this is important. The stage at which we harvest is important to maintain that low level of chitin so that it doesn't affect the digestibility of the protein, but it can still provide some of the prebiotic and antimicrobial benefits that chitin brings. And then we have our oil product, which has a diverse fatty acid profile, 40% medium chain fatty acids, 20% other saturated fats like palmitic acid and myristic acid, so C16 and C14, which have shown benefits to the metabolism of animals as well. And then we have 20% mono unsaturated fats and 20% polyunsaturated fats. So a unique blend of saturated fats and unsaturated fats. Ingredient can be formulated within pet foods as well and used as a feed coating to enhance palatability. As well, those medium chain fatty acids have antimicrobial characteristics. Produced to the highest standards of safety and quality. We are accredited with good manufacturing processes and HACCP compliant, and we are registered by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency as well as the US Food and Drug Administration. And we also have TRACES accreditation so that we are able to export our products into Europe. And so just touching a little bit more on the features and benefits. From an environmental standpoint, I've discussed the fact that we utilize less land, less water, and less greenhouse gases than a lot of conventional sources of ingredients and protein. We're upcycling nutrients from recycled food, which is a great part of the sustainability story within the insect agriculture and the black soldier fly production. They're natural, so up to 10% of animals in the wild will consume insects as part of their diet, and we're producing or utilizing no antibiotics or hormones within the process. From a nutritional standpoint, an excellent source of minerals, essential amino acids, and high protein and lipid digestibility, so it works very well in that regard. And I think what really separates the black soldier fly larvae apart from the rest is the functional benefits, the antimicrobial peptides, the lauric acid, the medium chain fatty acids that can provide some of those antimicrobial benefits, and the chitin, which has been proven to show prebiotic benefits as well. And because the ingredients in the protein source is novel and hasn't been introduced to domesticated dogs and cats, it is looked upon as a hypoallergenic ingredient as well, so another benefit. Sorry. From a regulatory update standpoint, from AAFCO approval, the current status is that the protein meal has been approved for use in adult maintenance diets for food and treats for dogs. It has been approved by the Ingredient Definition Committee of AAFCO in January, and it is expected to receive the full membership vote in August and become a temporary ingredient at that point, and then 1 year later will become an official ingredient. The oil is in review at FDA currently for dogs, and in cats, that regulatory process is in progress, and we expect that in 2022. So in closing, I would just like to say that the future is here. We are open for business. You're looking at the largest insect production facility in North America. This is a commercial scale production. It has arrived. This is a great opportunity for you and for your companies to access the novel ingredients the market is asking for from a sustainability standpoint, from a functional benefit standpoint. The scale and availability will continue to grow rapidly into the 2020s. So I'd like to again thank you for attending the webinar this morning. And as mentioned, we will have questions at the end after Monsieur Boutet's presentation.
Thank you, Brad. We've had a few questions, so let me just address those. There is no PDF or handout of today's presentation, but the speakers will be following up via email, I believe, with materials later on, and then the on-demand video recording will be available later today or tomorrow on petfoodindustry.com. Our next speaker is Serge Boutet, as Brad mentioned. Serge is an agrologist expert in animal nutrition who graduated from McGill University and is a member of the Order of Agronomists of Quebec with more than 37 years in animal nutrition, including the last 31 in the pet food industry. Presently owner of a consulting company founded in June 2013, SB Nutrinov Consultants. Serge is collaborating with the pet food industry on many aspects such as pet food formulation, brand development, ingredients, complete pet food projects from concept to retail, as well as training and technical education. Please welcome Serge Boutet.
Thank you, Debbie. Welcome, everyone. As we all know, insects are protein of future, and black soldier fly is probably the first online, as you saw with AAFCO. So in today's presentation, we'll have an overview of the nutritional information about the black soldier fly, the grubs and the larvae, and how we can utilize and how it's been utilized up to now in the pet food industry. So as we saw with Brad's section, we have the grubs, we have the protein meal, and we have the oil as ingredients to work from. So in formulating with black soldier fly, it is a very special, unique ingredient. It's novel. In your product development and formulation, you should not be afraid to be pioneers. When we go formulating with innovations, it is for sure sometimes we may feel we're alone, but it's for great results to come. So you should innovate by creating different concepts, new ideas, including the black soldier fly into your formulations, and innovate by creating partnerships. Company like Enterra is there to help to be a partner in your product development with this specialty ingredient, black soldier fly, the meal, the oil, etc. So innovation always comes with courage. Without it, no employee can create, neither can corporations innovate. So let's now look at more precisely at the protein section of the black soldier fly. So when we look at the nutritional information, it is the meal is the defatted black soldier fly larvae. So extraction of the oil, and we keep the meal. The meal is just like any other meal you've been looking at in the pet industry, you know, chicken, in terms of texture, it looks and it's handling about the same way. So as Brad mentioned, the approximate analysis shows about 53% protein, 13% fat, 10% fiber, about 7% to 8% ash, and a low moisture level of 4 or 5%. The complete amino acid profile is very interesting. We'll see on the next slides comparison with the main ingredients, the main other meals we see in the pet food industry. Fatty acid composition is also pretty unique. We'll go over that as well. So let's start by comparing two poultry sources. The black soldier fly larvae meal compare with the chicken meal, turkey meal, and duck meal. So here, when we look at the protein level of the meal itself, we start 55% protein compared to chicken meal. You know, chicken meal can go from 60 to 70. You know, there's many different sources, so I tried to put average numbers there. We see with turkey meal, same thing would be 60, 70%, and duck meal as well. So in terms of the fat is pretty comparable to the chicken meal. Again, there's can be some variability in this. Where it's getting very interesting is the level of omega-3s, which are at a 2% level compared to the poultry that is, you know, almost not present, maybe sometime depending on what they're eating, but it's mostly at 0. And the omega-6 is, you know, pretty comparable at a level about 2%. Where it's very interesting using the larvae meal is the ash content. There's no bones, as we can say, in the larvae per se. So when you compare with chicken meal, turkey meal, duck meal, the level of ash, which is all the minerals, will be higher because you get mainly a lot of bones. Chicken meal low ash will be about 9-10% ash, whereas the regular one will be about 14, 15, 16%. So here we get a very good advantage over this. And when we'll get the approval for cats, that will be right there a good advantage over other meals. Then we look at the main. We've seen a lot of communication on DCM lately, and the major amino acids, you know, cysteine, methionine, are at comparative levels, you know, to the poultry sources. So lysine level as well. So as you can see, nutritionally speaking, on the amino acid profile, we can certainly compare and use the black soldier fly larvae meal instead, or in connection with other poultry sources. Now let's look at the eggs. I have switched to the old larvae because the old larvae is like an egg in terms of composition. So you look at the protein and fat level, which are pretty close. The fat level is pretty close to the eggs, a little less protein than the eggs. And when we look at omega-3s, here again, big advantage over the eggs themselves, unless, you know, the eggs have been, the chicken, the layers have been fed with some omega-3s, so you can influence, you know, the level of omega-3s in eggs for sure. But on generally speaking, this is what we would get in terms of comparison. And then omega-6 is pretty close to it. Again, the ash content, I'm looking at the eggs without the shell, because if the shell would be present, you know, the ash content would be a lot higher. And then again, cysteine a little bit smaller, lower in the larvae, and the lysine and methionine as well. But you know, we know the eggs is the base comparison, the 100% bioavailability of nutrients such as the amino acids. Now let's move on to compare it with some of the red meats. We're talking about lamb meat. Porcine meal is included in this section. Beef meal, bison, and kangaroo, which are a little bit more special. So again, we're back with the larvae itself. Protein level, very comparable to these meat sources. Fat level as well. Again, the advantage over the omega-3s versus all the other sources. And the omega-6 also is competitive with these sources. Ash content, like I mentioned, ash is the old content of minerals. No bones in the larvae, so it brings a big advantage over the other meat sources, which can be from 20 to 30% ash content. Again, we compare cysteine, lysine, and methionine, and these levels can be very comparable to these meat meal sources that we see on a regular basis in the on the market in the pet food industry. And finally, we look at comparing with fish meals. So as you can see, we're looking at all the different available meals that we use on a regular basis in pet food industry. So protein-wise, these are average numbers, a little bit lower protein than these, but we can find some fish meal at around 60% protein for sure. The fat level, again, 15 as an average versus the other ones, maybe a little bit higher, but very competitive. Omega-3 contents, it all depends on where the fish come from. Fish from the wilderness will get higher omega-3s, especially DHA, EPA, because actually it's not the fish that provide the EPA, DHA, is the what they eat, and mainly algae from the ocean. They are the only one producing and creating these omega-3s, DHA and EPA. Then omega-6 is at a good level, a little bit lower than we see on salmon meal here. Ash content, again, it depends on how the fish meal is treated. If it's old fish or if it's parts of the fish, less the fillet, and so there's many of these sources. But as an average, you'll get probably half of the ash content. Again, as you can see, it's an advantage over any kind of meals we see on the market. And then comparing with the cysteine, lysine, and methionine, these essential amino acids, there's nothing to be ashamed of. It can be comparable to the fish meal as well. Now let's look at composition of the oil itself. The oil is pretty unique. I remember just the first trial I did 3-4 years ago with the black soldier fly larvae oil. I was at the plant, a plant where we were to build products to be dehydrated. So we had the larvae meal, and then pails. My customer had brought pails of the oil, and I was ready to just drop the oil. And when they opened the pail, I was kind of surprised to see this big pail of butter, just like coconut oil. And then it changed, some plan of manufacturing. Now I know we deal with that consistency, but that was a little bit surprising at the time, and no panic, but just an adjustment of manufacturing practices. So now let's look at the main composition of fatty acids. We know the saturated fatty acid level is 68% in these oil, with about 1.6% omega-3s, 11.2 omega-6, and 16% omega-9. So let's now look at the lauric acid. Lauric acid is a saturated fat, which has a great potential for antimicrobial activity. So big high level of it, which gives a good advantage for antimicrobial use and protection when included in the feed. Palmitic acid palmitic acid is an omega-7 component of cell membranes, secretory and transport lipids. Not an essential oil because the body can produce omega-7, but having that fairly good level here will help health and structure in the cell membranes of the body of the animal. Sorry, I have to come back to this. Oleic acid. Oleic acid also is a good known omega-9 fatty acid, which promotes fat burning, brain function, skin repair, as well as fights infection. So fairly good level at 16% there. And then linoleic acid, which is a good omega-6 involved in the cell membrane component for healthy skin and coat. So now let's do the same as we did for the meal and compare the Enterra oil, the black soldier fly larvae oil, with the main fats that we see on the market. So I have selected first the coconut oil because, as you can appreciate, the black soldier fly larvae oil is very similar to coconut oil, and we all know of the good benefits coconut oil can bring, even if the saturated level of fatty acid is quite high. So then we'll compare with the chicken fat, beef tallow, salmon oil, canola oil, soybean, sunflower, hemp, and olive oil, which are often present at different levels in formulation of pet foods. So lauric acid level, for sure, we see the insect oil and coconut oil very close together. Then if you look at lauric acid level in any other element, it's not present. Palmitic acid, good level, comparable to coconut oil, but lower than in chicken fat, beef tallow, similar to the salmon oil and some of the vegetable oil. Oleic acid, a little bit higher in the the larvae oil versus coconut, but lower than chicken, beef, and some of the vegetable oil that we find here. Linoleic acid level, pretty interesting compared to other. It's variable. We get a lot of linoleic acid in the vegetable oil, soybean, sunflower, hemp, versus the chicken and the beef. Beef has a very low level of linoleic acid. And then linolenic acid is present in some of these oil sources. So the saturated fatty acid level is a little bit lower in the insect oil versus the coconut oil, and higher than the other oil source and fat sources present in the pet food industry. So as you can see, the meal and the oil can be very comparable in terms of a nutritional aspect with what we see on the market as available ingredient. Now let's look a little bit at last feeding trials that were done, some very recently with dogs on the palatability of the black soldier fly protein. So here we see the results were calculated and just last Friday, so it's pretty new. It's foods with 20% black soldier fly larvae meal and 6.8% of the oil. So acceptability of the food with black soldier fly larvae is very interesting compared to a leading hypoallergenic vegan formula that we see on the market. So first day, second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day, and then the average here as 103 versus 49.4 grams of consumption. As you can see at the beginning, it's a little bit equal between the dogs the 2 first days, which shows that the animal, they detect it's a new protein and they can adjust. Then on the third day, that's when they turn around. This is why I believe often in longer feeding trials, because we can see the trend and tendency of animals to like to follow and maybe to switch back and forth. But as we can see, as time goes over 5 days, we get these kinds of results with good average, about double the consumption of black soldier fly larvae. So it is positive to see that animals, they like the food. Now, in terms of digestibility assessment, on such trial, we look at very good numbers for digestibility, near 85% for total dry matter, 85% for protein, very good, very normal, 93% for fat, caloric digestibility at 89, ME kilocalories per gram is at 3.94, and caloric digestibility 86%, and another calculation of the metabolizable energy through the caloric bomb versus the Atwater calculation. So again, as you can see, with the same base food, with 20% black soldier fly meal and 6.8% of the oil, we get very good results that we regularly see in super premium foods, well accepted and well digested products. And then, again, when we feed at one end, and there's things that we have to consider at the other end of the animal, so the stools. So during the trial, there have been assessment of rating of the stools over time, and the average is just very well, 3.27, well formed, a little bit sticky, but the animals were adapting very well to the food, digesting it well, and providing very well-formed stools, which shows a good digestion, good process naturally in the intestine. So feeding trials for cats. We've seen cats fed meal-based foods with treats that are performing well, with levels of incorporation of to 25%. Acceptability seems very positive up to now, but feeding trials results to come within the next year. As Brad was mentioning, things look very good for 2022 in terms of approval of black soldier fly larvae meal in cat foods. Now, what it is to manufacture with the black soldier fly larvae, the meal. So as we saw, dogs and cats normally eat insects while they are outdoor. It's natural. About 10% of their diet is composed of insects. And when we look at wild canines and wild felines, they can adapt to whatever there is available on the market for them, which is in the wilderness, and they can go up to 20-25% of insects to eat, if there is less or different protein source available. One of my customer has looked at the interior of a coyote in South US and opened the digestive system and saw that it was filled with grasshoppers. So, you know, naturally canines and felines in the wilderness will go for insects. We as humans are a little bit close to it in North America and Europe, but we have to remember that over 2-3 billion people are eating daily insects in the world, you know, in Asia, South America, Africa, and with good results. It's a very good protein and fat source. So when you start formulating with levels that would meet their normal eating habits, you can start introducing at 10% level in your formula and move on slowly. Or you can go with higher level at 25 to 30%. I have myself formulated different products with the black soldier fly larvae meal at all these levels with, you know, good results on palatability and usage by the animal themselves. So dogs and cats may need a little transition time, but it is the same thing on any products. You know, if you change from chicken to beef or chicken to fish, your animal may need to adapt better with the new protein source. So a little bit of advice on working with the insects. It's preferable to work with the meal for direct manufacturing because when you look at the grubs, when you're going to grind them with the very high fat content, it's going to make a paste and it may block the equipment, the grinding equipment. So a lot of the grubs, old grubs, would be fed directly to chicken or included in the suet for birds. And you know, I've worked on also on bringing the complete grubs into the new trends of homemade cooked food with meats and where you don't need to grind. So the grubs can be a good, interesting way of introducing the insect protein and fat into these types of diets. Reaction of the meals into baking or extrusion, you know, it is exactly the same as any other meals. I remember one of the first trial with a manufacturer on extrusion. The owner of the plant was a little bit concerned. His team, operators of the extruder, they were all concerned about how it would react. And when they started to extrude the product and convey all the food through the system, they were all calling me, look, you know, the extruder is running exactly where it should be. You know, the arrows are all in the middle of the targets. So everybody at the end of the trial, they were all smiling. And with all the other places on treats, on food, where I've been present on the manufacturing of products I developed, everything was always doing very well. So no need to be afraid of going there. One very important element is the palatant. If you want to go sustainability and no other animal protein than insects, there are on the market very good vegan palatants that are doing great for combination with insect meal. So I suggest this is something to look at if you're not still introducing some animal protein other than insects. Then looking at the oil, as I mentioned before, you have to consider that the black soldier fly larvae oil is the consistency of coconut oil, so it's buttery. But it's been seen by some customers that when the oil is mixed with a vegetable oil, you have to warm it before to liquefy it, and when you combine it with a vegetable oil, sunflower or soybean or canola, you'll see that it helps keep it on the liquid state and help application. So this is, the main advice I would suggest using the oil and the meal. So, in the last section of my presentation, you have to remember that being innovator, developer means that you should not be afraid to be pioneer. You should go for it. And with it's been 6 years now, I've been working with insects, meals, and fats, and I can say that it's heading to great success. Always remember that pioneers are first-class winners when it comes to success, results, and recognition. So to be successful developing with a novel ingredient-based pet food, you have to have a different story. And here, the different story is insects. It is different than what we see on the market. You need to have a good story. The good story here is sustainability. Sustainability is part of us, all of us, saving the world. Insect will take its place into the pet food world and helping the planet at the same time. And the real story, I can say, and we shared a little bit with you, there are positive results. We've seen alternative protein source of insects helping animals that were in situation of allergies with their food. And for sure, we need more and more research on these, but with the investment and the knowledge that company like Enterra is bringing to the market, we are heading for good sales with black soldier fly ingredients. So thank you, merci, in all the languages, because I know we have people from around the world today. So obrigado, gracias, thank you, merci. If you have any question, now Debbie will take over for the question period. Thank you.
Thank you, Serge. Yes, before we start with the question and answer period, we do have a poll question that we would appreciate your input on, please. Just a second. Here we go. Where do you think would be the best place to see insect protein first used in dog food? Replacing all meat protein ingredients in a meat-based food, replacing all sustainable protein in a vegetarian or vegan food, as an additional protein source to an existing meat-based food, an additional protein source for a sustainable protein-based food, or insect-based dog food should stand alone. Please select one answer. While you're doing that and we're waiting for everyone to get through that, I will remind you that there is not a handout today of this presentation, but the speakers will be following up with everyone via email with materials based on the information they presented today. So you can look forward to that. And the video recording will be available starting tomorrow on our website, Petfood Industry. Okay, thank you everyone for your participation in the poll. We will now move to the question and answer segment. We have lots and lots of questions, so we will try to get through as many as we can in the next several minutes. They're kind of playing off the poll. We had one question, I think it's for both of you, Serge and Brad, do you recommend insect protein be used as a complete replacement for meat protein ingredients in a meat-based food?
I can go first. I've done it in multiple occasions with great results, so I don't see any problem doing so. What I can suggest too, it depends on companies, like I was mentioning in the presentation. If you want to bring in a food with a good level to start with, a 10% can be a good start, because the story behind it is it's natural for dogs and cats to eat about 10% of their diet with insects. So that would be a good entrance level, depending on your marketing strategy. But no concern whatsoever to use this as the only animal protein source with even high level up to 25 or 30%.
Okay. Anything to add, Brad?
No, I mean that's the experience that we've had, is that is definitely an option to replace 100% of the meat protein. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So Brad, there are quite a few questions around the raising of the flies, if you will, and the production. The first one is, what do you do with quote unquote old breeding flies?
At this point in time, the old breeding fly, so the 1 to 2 weeks, as mentioned, is how long they live. So they're naturally passing at that point in time, and we're working on different options for utilizing that stream of out of the operation at this point in time.
Okay. There was some around. Sorry, the looking for one. I know there was one around. Is there any, they're living in a moist, warm environment with a lot of organic material. Is there any risk of mold developing? Or is there any guarantee that the larva will not accumulate any harmful metabolites from mold?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So because they're such an efficient detritivore, and they're feeding, very very fast and a lot of material, we don't see that as being a concern through the feeding process, through the larva rearing stage. And then in regards to any of the metabolites of concern or toxins or micros, we're testing the finished products, very consistently to understand if there is any concerns, and we haven't had any major concerns there. On the mold side of the situation, we're again managing the conditions through the processing and then packaging of the materials, and so it's not a concern. Okay.
For the diets of the black soldier fly larva, you said fruits and vegetables. So the question is it actual fruit and vegetables, or is it a specialized feed based on fruits and vegetables?
No, so we're actually, what we're getting is pre-consumer food waste from the grocery chain, and so it's none of the feedstock has been at the consumer plate or in the restaurant industry or anything like that. It's all coming from grocery chains, and it actually is produce that we receive that's diverted from landfill.
Do the larvae get gut loaded? I'm not sure.
No, they do not. Okay. Not through our process. The nutritional profile of the feedstock is what goes in and is managed, closely to affect the outcomes.
Okay. And what type of drying do you use for the protein meal? Is it heat treated?
Yes, we do have a heat-treated drying process at our facility. That's correct.
Okay, and then a technical question about the mechanical defatting you mentioned. Is that done by press screw?
Yes, it is. Yes, correct.
Okay. I think that was most of the production type questions. A few regulatory ones. So I think you both covered this, but we know that AAFCO has now approved the use of black soldier fly larva meal for dogs and cats is being worked on. What about other birds, or like small mammals, birds or small mammals, or other types of pets, I guess I should say?
Yeah, so on the bird side, like we have poultry and fish approved for use as well. We on the additional other pets or other smaller pets or exotics, that's being worked on as well at this point in time. Don't have
Okay.
an ETA of the timeline on that, but it's in process.
What about with FEDF? Is there approval by FEDF for any species?
Sorry, what was that?
FEDF, well, it's not really FEDF, it's European Union approval would be, is there approval in the European Union?
There is, and there's, I don't have the information right in front of me, but I know that there's either current already approvals or approvals in process on the regulatory side in Europe.
Okay. So there's a question around that. Some European companies are franchising to America. Would Enterra ever franchise to Europe? That might be a private question to handle offline.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that as a company, Enterra will continue to grow with the industry.
Okay. And same person, that was kind of back to the production. How do you mentioned that you keep 2% of the larvae for the next generation. How do you select those larvae?
So it's actually something that through the process of feeding, we've sort of pre-selected, and we know which components or which portion of the production we want to move into that breeding stock to start that next generation. So they're sort of pre-selected and then managed accordingly.
Okay, great, thank you. I think most of the questions are related to the nutritional benefits of black soldier fly larvae, and I think you probably addressed many of them, Serge, as you were going through your presentation, but let's hit on a few. Have there been any allergic reactions to black soldier fly ingredients? I guess in pets is the question. The example that was given, like cricket meal, has been known to cause an allergic reaction similar to crustacean allergies in humans.
I have not seen or heard anything on allergies. It's more the contrary we hear, is animals that are allergic to one kind of protein meal somewhere when they're fed with the black soldier fly larvae. Their allergic reactions are diminishing or disappearing. So, for sure, it's an area of research that Enterra will continue to look at, but the results on the products that are already in the market and that the trials have been done, and what I've seen personally with the products that I've been working on in collaboration with Enterra, it seems to go in the direction of being hypoallergenic, just the way of other protein, like we see lamb at one time and kangaroo and duck and things like that.
At least while it's a novel protein. Okay.
Yeah, it's an alternative protein source that presently is a good choice, for these allergic potentialities,
Okay. I think this question is comparing black soldier fly larvae to other types of insect protein, specifically mealworms. The question says that mealworms have lower ash content and higher protein. So this is probably more for you, Brad. Is there a reason that Enterra has focused on black soldier fly larvae?
Yeah, so I think that it's clear that the protein levels of mealworm is higher. As mentioned in the presentation, there's a lot of other functional benefits to the fatty acid profile, for instance, of the black soldier fly larvae, and there's also production capabilities and capacities and other factors that come into the reason that Enterra has focused on black soldier fly larvae as the insect to produce.
Okay. I'm not sure. I think this was in your presentation, Brad. You presented black soldier fly products as an antimicrobial. how do you expect it to impact its acceptance as a feed ingredient?
Well, I think there's been multiple studies done. I mean, studies have looked at lauric acid, medium chain fatty acids, chitin or chitosan as well, and then they've also looked at just utilizing the black soldier fly larvae, for instance, as ingredients and seen effects on gut microbial health, effects on specific pathogens that have in the animal feed world have shown effects on. So I think that there's going to be an evolution of ingredients that come out of the black soldier fly larvae production because of those antimicrobial and prebiotic characteristics. Specific to the pet food market, I think that this is something that will be explored and evolve as well and produce opportunities, I think, for additional uses within this world of pet food.
Okay. You mentioned chitin. There actually was a question about that. Does it affect the digestibility when black soldier fly larva is used as an ingredient?
And that's an important question, and I think I referred to it in the presentation around the level of chitin within the exoskeleton as the larvae is growing and then shedding that exoskeleton. It's a lot lower in the larvae itself prior to pupating. As the larvae comes into pupation, the shell is hardening, the chitin levels increase, and then that's what protects it as it's waiting to emerge. And so a harvest timing is very important to keep the chitin level at a level that provides some of those prebiotic benefits, but does not affect the digestibility because it is kept to that lower level.
Okay. This is somewhat related back to the mold question. I think you mentioned adding Naturox at some point. Is that correct?
I don't know if I did, but yeah, we do utilize a low level of Naturox in the meal and in the oil from a shelf life standpoint. But it's,
Okay.
I mean, Naturox is providing the antioxidation or preventing the oxidation more so than anything on molds specifically, as far as I understand.
Okay, and then you may have just addressed this, but you were talking about some of the positive benefits of chitin. Someone was concerned about digestibility, but then someone else is saying, well, maybe is there a reason not to add more chitin to the protein meal for the prebiotic and probiotic benefits? Is it because of the digestibility, or is that something that needs to be studied?
Yeah, I don't know the exact level that you would be able to introduce without affecting the digestibility, but I do know that it can. That is a big factor of why you wouldn't want to introduce too much of it.
Okay. Okay, does sound like it's an opportunity for more research.
Correct.
This is a question you may want to take offline too, but maybe it's maybe for a general sense that people can get. What is the price per pound for either the whole larva or the meal?
Yeah, so I won't get into any specifics on the exact numbers. Please contact us if you're interested in more information on price. But I can say that when we look at the functional benefits, the overall value that we're providing from a sustainability standpoint, and we compare that to other protein sources or fat sources that have some of the same characteristics, we're definitely in the competitive and level compared to the others that we're up against. So, Serge, maybe have a comment. Yeah.
Yeah, I can add a little bit here. It is formulating with very high level of black soldier fly larvae meal is feasible, nutritionally speaking, and it is feasible, also cost-wise. So you are in the high end of super premium foods, but it's sellable, and the return to the animals and to the owners, I think, worth the investment. And we have to understand also that the insect as ingredients is starting still new, even if a company like Enterra and have been involved with over 10 years now in development of these. But there's for what I see, a lot of projects. There's a lack of supply, so which is very positive for Enterra with their plant and their future growth, and any of other companies in the insect industry. And I want to talk a little bit more general about insects. Some people look at insects or different insects. We heard about the mealworm, crickets, and black soldier fly larvae that are the main ones for pet food today. It is a category that is growing. So for me, I don't see any competition whatsoever in terms of these different insects. Look at the insect as a new category that is bringing sustainability, helping us manage protein for the future of our animals and people, and at the same time, helping the planet. This was how I started to be involved in this with 3 young men that had an idea of trying to save the world 6 years ago, and just discussed with me about their crazy project of building a company with treats with insects. And I'm a weird guy, so I said, oh my God, this is a neat idea. So we were not afraid to be pioneered then. And a company like Enterra was already in the process of developing and other insects. So I can tell you that 6 years ago, people were looking at us, like, my God, from which planet are you coming from? and now in today's world, look at the interest we had today on the call with many people, and I see a great future, and don't be afraid to be pioneer.
Okay, a few more technical questions. I think these are more for you, Serge. Back the feeding trial that you showed the results of with, I think it was comparing to the vegan or vegetarian meal. Have you tested it against animal protein-based meal?
Yeah, there's trials going on presently, comparing with the main protein source, chicken. So we'll have results, probably end of 2021 on these. But it is never. I'm never afraid of targeting the number one, because we want to compare. And up to now, what I've seen, there's no shame of using the black soldier fly larvae meal against chicken. Results on animals are excellent.
Okay. Well, here's. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say I can speak to the testing that needs to be done or is being done. It's each specific diet that is formulated, of course, has different palatants and different other ingredients. And the palatability trial that Serge showcased was had some of the same characteristics of that other vegetarian diet or vegan diet, right? So there will be other results that will be showcasing up against animal proteins as well.
Okay. Here's what may be the $1 million question. With more people wanting to feed their pets like they feed themselves, and with insects not being a popular food for humans, at least in the Western world, I'll add that comment myself. How do you think the market will respond to including insects in pet food?
Well, I can speak to that. We have done some market research in regards to this, and it's definitely, we understand in North America the use of insects as food is a lot lower on the scale than other parts of the world, but the acceptability of utilizing them for pets is higher. And we believe that once the education level and understanding of just how efficient insects are at transforming nutrients and then providing good nutrition, good functional benefits to the pets, we believe that those numbers are going to continue to increase, and we're actually going to be, benchmarking and continuing to understand where those levels go over the next while. It's an introduction of, in the Western world, moving into the feed use to get people more comfortable with insects as a nutritional source. We feel that's a very important first step moving forward.
Okay.
That's I can add just a quick point here. Most insect growing companies, they're all looking at the human food world because it's a big market. But since their reluctance, the best way to enter to our table is through our pets, because, we're pet parents. We share the same counter with the food of our pets and our sandwiches, in our house. So it's a good way to make people, get acclimatized to that novel protein through feeding their pets with it, and see how well they react and how enjoying they are about eating that food. So I think it's the good way to make people in North America and Europe be a little bit more open and aware. But it's doing so. Like I said, 6 years ago versus today, wow, the interest is a lot different. The openness of people to insect is growing.
Okay.
And I would just add, sorry, it's very interesting, in regards to the question around, and part of the question was that, we want to feed our pets more and more like we feed ourselves, and that's actually, goes against the sustainability of ingredients going into the pet food markets. And so we need to really do a good job collectively to educate people that, if sustainability and sustainable ingredients are what we're demanding, then the insect industry, insect ingredients fit that, but not so much if we're going to go that direction of feeding more, food grade or food quality ingredients.
Right. And yeah, right. I was just going to put in a quick shameless plug. One of Brad's colleagues, Bruce, whose last name I'm sorry, I'm forgetting. He's
Bruce Jarrett.
Bruce, yes, Bruce Jarrett. Thank you. He's going to be presenting at Petfood Forum in September on some of the consumer surveys that Enterra has been doing in terms of insect protein acceptance. So just FYI. And then another more general question about acceptance, and this is kind of a weird one, but I had actually thought of it myself, was, sometimes you hear protests against use of animals, certain animals, or animal welfare is becoming a very important claim or consideration for consumers. Is there any kind of tie there to insect protein and how they're raised and produced?
I haven't heard of any concerns or being raised in that regard. I think that, generally larvae are happy when they're fed properly, and we're doing a good job at that. So no, I not at this point in time has it been brought up. Okay.
And then I think we'll start to wrap up here. There were several questions around, there's a lot of other questions that unfortunately we're not going to get to, but the speakers will get a copy of all your questions, and so perhaps they can follow up with you in person for the very specific detailed questions around the nutrients. The one question I was going to end with, though, was there were several questions around food formats. So, for example, ones around, could you treat dog bone treats, use the oil, the BSFL oil on dog treats, for example. And then, Serge, I think you mentioned, some processing considerations with a dry or baked. Has there been any work done or any looking at it with like wet or other formats?
Yeah. There have been trials done with, and some products are under development in any types of food. Canned food. I think one of the first pet product was a canned food in Canada for cats some years ago. So yeah, it is feasible to use either the meal or the complete grubs. I have developed myself with a customer. We've done trials with some of raw insects into raw food. Dogs were not that crazy about the raw insect, but the dehydrated one or a little bit roasted ones, they thrive on it. So, you know, I think there's it's like it's not all animals that would jump on a raw food or raw chicken, but if they're used, they go on a kibble. So these are things we've seen. You know, there's a lot more to look at. I've been in contact. I had the chance to meet probably the researcher that is doing the most trials and research on insects for pets. It's Dr. Guido Bosch from I cannot even say the name of Wageningen University.
Yeah, Wageningen in the
I always have a problem to say the name, but from the Netherlands, and I've been in contact often with Dr. Guido Bosch, a nice man, one of the great researchers in the insect world, and he's getting more and more information for everyone based on his research. And I think what I've seen at that university, there's a lot more interest from other researchers. So we have the science world behind all these companies, and we're going to get more and more data on this. But what we've seen up to now, very positive.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, and thanks to everyone for all your great questions. As I said, for any ones that were not answered, we will get the list of questions to the speakers, and they can follow up as they have time. So thank you for also everyone for your participation today. A reminder that an on-demand video recording will be made available starting tomorrow on petfoodindustry.com. And the speakers will also be following up with materials as a handout later on. Don't forget to register for any upcoming webinars that we have. Again, we have Pet Food Project Management Insights on April 8th, and the pet food market, an update and projections for this year on April 14th. You can register for those, view the on-demand video of today's webinar, or see other on-demand webinars at petfoodindustry.com/webinars. Please remember to take a couple minutes to answer our short survey after the webinar concludes. Thank you very much to our sponsor, Enterra, for their participation today. For more information on their products and services, please visit enterra.com. And finally, a huge thank you to Serge and Brad for all their information and their answers to the questions. Thank you for joining us, and have a great day.